Hello everyone.
Hi everyone.
Hello.
So thank you for coming our live streaming. Today is second day of Fireside chat. So my name is Shunto.
My name is Anam.
My name is Mari.
Okay, so
And I am
Shunto.
Catherine.
Yeah. So Shunto and Nanan and Mari is our moderator. So today's guest speaker is Ms. Catherine Cool.
Hello.
Hello, nice to meet you.
Hello. Nice to meet you.
So listeners, please leave your comments as well. So today's topic is the challenges and experience of working in podcasting and social media. So first, we would like to ask some question about podcast. So first question, okay. So why are you interested in podcast and why did you want to host podcast?
So my background is in obviously marketing, but as well video creation. I got a bit of a hobby in creating videos. So being interviewed for videos, but also interviewing other people, as well as editing it all up. And I started doing that for TAFE Queensland, in addition to the other marketing tasks that are part of my role. And when my boss suggested that we delve into podcasting, I threw myself at the opportunity because it's just fun doing anything creative, I think, and learning new technologies. And I think if you're interested in marketing, essentially you're interested in communication and you're interested in communicating to people and sending messages and creating relatable content. So it's part of the big realm of marketing, I guess. And also, I come from a pretty creative family. My dad was a musician, so I always grew up outside of studios with him, recording and things like that. So the thought of going into studios and recording and interviewing people and doing all that kind of stuff is super exciting for not only my role, but also how I grew up and my background. So, and then as well, I guess when you start with podcasting in terms of the hosting part of that question, that was my introduction to it. So we obviously have students and to interview them is at first it was quite scary, but you do get a bit more confident as time goes on. And then it turns around. And so I've been interviewed for other podcasts as well. And you eventually get quite used to it and comfortable with it. But it is a lot of fun. And you get to meet some really cool people as well.
Wow. So, yeah, thank you for answering fascinating stories. Yeah. So, okay, so let's move on next topic. Next questions. So, what's fun about doing a podcast?
So many things. I did kind of touch on a little bit of it. So I guess kind of as I said before, when you first get into it, it's like anything in life. If you're first trying something out, no one is, professional, I guess, at it straight away. So there is a little bit of a learning curve. So I think at the beginning, it was really exciting. I was learning all of this new technology, and I was, the difference between creating a video, which is what my background was at that stage, is that generally videos, you don't really want to make one that's longer than about 2 minutes long for marketing purposes. Whereas a podcast is, about 20 minutes long. So it's a totally different and more in-depth way of interviewing, and you've got to really be present in the conversation and invested in the conversation. So it was really fun at first, but I was still a little bit scared. And at first, but then as I became more comfortable, it's so much fun traveling around and meeting the new people. It's so much fun learning people's stories. Everyone has an incredible story. You know, I think my story of my life is boring because I grew up in it, but to someone else who's lived a completely different life thinks that my story is really interesting. So everyone has an amazing story. Everyone has an interesting story. Everyone has, you know, opinions about things. And you get to go and discover those things. You really get to learn how to communicate effectively with people. And it's learning. You're constantly learning and absorbing information. And as you get better at it, you then grow more confidence, and a little bit of that social anxiety kind of dissipates a little bit, and you can just feel more confident, and that in itself is really fun as well. And then you get interviewed for cool live streams like this, which is just another fun experience of the podcasting world. So it is a lot of fun at every stage.
Yeah. Also, so we have experience of doing live streaming before. Yeah. So at that time, we struggle to create live streaming that would interest listeners.
Yeah.
So, and so how do you create an interesting podcast?
How do you create an interesting podcast?
Yeah.
Well, there's a couple of different things to that. So there's different types of, so majority of podcasts are pre-recorded. So it's a little bit different to live streaming, although some people's podcasts are live, like I think Joe Rogan, I think he does them live. But a lot of them are pre-recorded and edited as well. So in terms of creating an interesting podcast, the general rule is about creating any content, really. If it's something that you find interesting, there's probably going to be a bunch of other people out there that find it interesting too. So it's also getting to know who your audience is. I think in terms of the styles of podcasts, so as I said before, everyone's got a really interesting story. And so if the style of podcast that you're doing is like a conversational one, is an interviewing one, then I guess figuring out what the topic is that you're talking about is going to be, and your line of questioning is pretty essential. But then you've also got different kinds of podcasts that are, you know, like true crime podcasts and things like that. So they're more like reporting style podcasts where you're listening to the person tell their story and then you narrate over the top of it. But again, so in comparison to live streaming, which was the beginning of that question, podcasts are quite heavily edited, whereas live streaming is obviously quite live. So you need to make sure that the guests that you're interviewing, you're specifically picking the right ones, because obviously a lot of things can go wrong live. So, to try and negate those kinds of things, I guess for live streaming, you'd really want to pick your topic and the guests that you're having on, that you're interviewing. But yeah, like picking generally, as if you're interested in someone else, is going to be, and being as authentic as possible. When you're interviewing someone, instead of thinking, okay, what do I think the audience want to hear? That means that you're not present in the interviewing process. And it means that instead of you really honing in on what it is that person is saying, the other little narrative is going on in your head. So you're probably not going to ask the questions that what the listener wants to hear, or what they would ask if they were in the room with you. So picking good topics, making sure your interviewing questions are what you would consider interesting, being authentic, and being present in the interview, being present and listening and not having the other narrative going on in the back of your head is that will set you up for a good interview.
Yeah, thank you for answering. I think your opinion will be helpful to us and viewers. So we want to be aware of topics and listeners' feelings. So in order to create an interesting live streaming. So let's move on to the next question. You manage a podcast with 500,000 listeners. So what do you think are the tips to getting over 500,000 listeners?
Sure. So there's a few parts to that question as well. So obviously the first things first is making sure that once you've figured out what you're going to be talking about, so you know your topic, you know your questions and things like that. Essentially, podcasts are storytelling. So you're telling a story, or you're information sharing, or potentially problem solving or things like that. But what you want to do in the podcast itself is, for example, if it's a conversational one where you're interviewing someone, you want the listener to feel like they're in the room with you. You want the listener to be so, I guess, engrossed in the conversation that they feel like, when you're asking the question, that it's the question that actually came from their head. And also, if you're doing a podcast such as like reporting one, so like a true crime kind of thing, sound effects and things like that are really important, because if you're talking about, so for example, if we're going to go and talk about the My Study Journey podcast, the last few seasons have been conversational episodes. However, this next season that's coming out is a bit more reporting style. So in one part of one of the episodes that is coming out, the person's talking and I narrate over, to connect the dots. So he's telling his bit of the story, and then I'll connect the dots, and then he tells the other bit of the story. But in this one part, he's talking about how he is in a park really early in the morning, and he can see the sun is glistening through this piece of glass. And so we put as noises in the background that, there's birds chirping and all that kind of stuff. So when you're listening to it, and when he is describing it verbally, because of these sounds in the background that are of the nature, I guess, of what he's talking about, you really feel like you're there. And it's kind of like, the other day I had a situation where I was listening to this amazing podcast, and I was entranced in it, basically. And I was walking home, and I crossed the road, and I was just so entranced in this podcast that I didn't even look the other way to see if there was a car coming, and I almost walked in front of a car. And that's because that podcast was so interesting in the way that the producers or the editors had edited in the sound effects and everything. I felt like I was there. I felt like I was totally within the space that person was describing. So talking about getting listeners, it obviously quite essential to be creating these types of podcasts that people just totally fall into. So there's two, I guess, the reason our strategy with creating the My Study Journey podcast was part of our marketing strategy. So it wasn't a revenue generation thing. So it's not like a business. So some people use podcasts as a revenue generating thing, so like as a business kind of thing. Whereas our podcast for the My Study Journey is part of our marketing strategy. So we have funding for it. So basically, we can kind of double dip in not only using it to reach our audience, but we can also use it as content to splash out in other areas, Facebook, Instagram, all that kind of stuff. But with getting back to also, the content of the actual podcast itself, initially when it was first released, it was actually it was featured on Apple. So Apple picked it up, the streaming service. And I think because it ticked a few boxes, it was, about international students, so diversity, about education. It's, showing off a range of jobs or potential jobs. So we got a fair few listeners from that push through Apple, the feature through Apple. But because this is part of our marketing strategy, we were able to put money towards it, which is a big difference to other podcasts if you're trying to create that podcast as a revenue generating kind of business thing. So, to get all of the listeners that we have so far, I guess, is three things you can put it down to. One, the fact that the content is interesting. Two, the marketing that we did on the actual for the podcast, so marketing the podcast itself, even though we're using that as a marketing tool as well. And the fact that it was featured on Apple. So there are a few ways there that we have got quite a few listeners. It's also about being kind of savvy. So there was a stage there. So we had the My Study Journey podcast happening from before COVID and then all the way through. So there was actually a time frame there where we didn't really have that many international students that we could interview. So that season, we changed that season to be industry insights. So basically, I would go around and I would interview our industry partners, and we would answer questions like, if you study this, how much do you get paid? How long does it take you to study it? What can you expect in industry? How far can you grow in industry? All those kinds of things that people, when they're thinking about what they want to study, those are the questions that they would be asking. So why not go out and get it from industry? And then I interviewed the teachers for those industries as well. So you kind of get it from both sides of that. So not only did we have paid advertising for that, so pushing it out, on all the socials, but we actually did organic marketing for that as well. So I'll use that particular season as an example. So I posted that on my LinkedIn and tagged the industry partners who I interviewed. And for example, one of the guys that I tagged or that I interviewed and then I tagged him in the post, it got heaps of likes. And I think that in itself, just that post, I think something like 100 or a couple of hundred people listened to it just from that organic, so unpaid. So the difference, I guess, between, if we're looking at the 500,000 listeners, if you're doing a podcast where it's part of your marketing strategy and you have funding to put towards that, then you can promote the podcast. Whereas if you are creating a podcast that you're trying to get listeners, and that is your revenue strategy, or trying to generate some revenue out of that, then in that case, it's a lot more of organic marketing because you don't have the funding or as much funding behind it. So then, you do have to look a little bit more in terms of, you know, the organic posting and the way that you do make money out of those podcasts is by advertising. So people advertising through your podcast or subscriptions. So there's a big difference between having a marketing strategy podcast and having a podcast that you are using as a business that you're trying to generate some income out of. And it is much harder to get people from the one that obviously has less money put towards it to market it. So I think I went a few ways of answering that question, but yeah.
Yeah, thank you for sharing your tips. Let's move on to the next question. And what are the latest trends and technologies in podcast?
So the latest technologies in podcasts, I think in terms of like equipment, you know, you can obviously, the good thing about podcasting is that it's not video, so you don't have to spend so much time capturing the visuals or anything. So you can use, you know, online platforms and things like that to get the interviews completed. You know, I think the thing with podcasting as well is, like, if you're just starting out with podcasting, I would advise just to go and get, you know, not the most expensive technology, not the most expensive equipment or anything like that. Just, you know, get what you can afford, what's it within the price range that you have, and just start creating content and start, you know, getting your groove and figuring it out. And I think once you get a bit of a following or once you've got a bit of a name for yourself, then you can buy all the fancy things. But and I guess in terms of like technology, everything's always changing and everything's always adapting and pushing further and, you know, becoming, I mean, I'm not sure if you've seen on like Spotify and things like that, you can actually, they play some visuals whilst you're either listening to podcasts or like a film clip even plays sometimes. So it's interesting. Things are constantly evolving. But in terms of, like starting out and the technology, I guess I would just get the basics and then go from there.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. It's very interesting. And next, we would like to ask some questions about marketing. First, what information do you think is important when promote a product?
What information?
Yeah.
Cool. So I'll have to split it up again because there's two different, I guess, answers to that depending on the type of podcast you have. And I do think that maybe some of the people listening here might want to create a hobby podcast or a podcast that they can eventually make some money out of as well. But I'll start off with the My Study Journey podcast, which again was part of our marketing strategy. So the thing with marketing is essentially you are trying to build trust with your potential customer, and there's generally around about 8 to 13 touch points or something along that to be able to convert who you want to convert them into a customer. So obviously podcasting is an amazing tool for that because it's a chance. So adding it into your marketing strategy, it's a chance for people to build an even more trustworthy relationship with your brand because they're getting, it's not just like a 2-minute video or it's not just a static image that's coming up on their Facebook. They're really getting invested in this person's journey and this story and how you've changed their lives. So in terms of, you know, the amount of touch points that you need to have, podcasting is a really good one to help build people's trust about your what you have to offer, about your brand. So then that as one strategy. So then when you're pushing that out, so what we used to do is I would get our podcasts that I do aren't visually recorded as well. So it's just the audio that we record. So a lot of the podcast advertising that you'll see on Instagram and stuff like that are real. So you'll actually see them talking. However, we haven't done that yet. Generally, when I interview someone for the podcast, the interviews can go for, I mean, at least an hour, basically. And with this new podcast, the new season coming up of the podcast that we're doing, the interviews go for some of them 2 hours, and I edit that right down to about 20 minutes. So for me to as well be filming that, it's a little bit tricky. So what I landed on was to get a static image. And once I had edited the podcast down, in the previous seasons, we've had some help with editing from another lovely lady, Katie, as well. And basically once I'll go through it and I'll listen to it again, and I'll pick out the bit that speaks to me the most. And it's usually around about like a 15 to maybe 30 second kind of voice grab that you listen to. And so I'd get the image, and I'd put one of those little voice thingamabobbies on there. So when the person would see the image, they would see that there was some voiceover going over the top of it. And I'd create Facebook and Instagram ads that way. So once I'd picked a little bit out, got the photo that I liked, I would then I would target it. Obviously to the country where that person came from is a big one, because someone can relate to it, that those people can relate to it from that country a lot more, and then also a bunch of other countries as well. And you know, the strategies, without getting too far into it, you'd look at, you know, the particular course that they were doing and where most people that do that course come from. So those kinds of things you'd think about when you're doing your detailed targeting. And then as well, with the primary text on the campaign, the ads, I would choose like just something that quickly explained what it is. So listen to Da-da-da's full story on the My Study Journey podcast as an international student studying in Australia. And for some reason, those ads just went bananas, and people loved them and clicked on them. And we not only had a massive rate of people going and listening to, so there's different, you know, people can click on it and listen to 5 minutes of the podcast and then jump off again. But our data shows that I think it's up to about 87%. It fluctuates between 84 and 87% of people will listen to the full thing. So that tells us a couple of things. So when we're looking at data, that tells us that, one, the content that we're creating, people want to listen to it. And the way that we are promoting it, people are liking it. It speaks to people. So yeah, in terms of promoting it on social media and things like that, it was a bit of a success. But it's, again, you've just got to try and put something out, because once you get that data, if people aren't clicking on it or aren't going through the way that you want them to, or they're not, you know, if our listen rate was, you know, 5% or something like that, our listen through rate, as in the people that will listen to the whole thing, then you'd know you're not targeting the right people that are interested in the content that you're creating. So yeah, it's just about getting something out there, trialing it out, getting the data, letting that give you some direction. And once you find that direction, keep going that way.
Thank you for sharing this answer. Today's
No worries.
live streaming was packed with a lot of new and interesting information. I really enjoyed the conversation. We had an enjoyable and productive time. Thank you so very much.
You're welcome.
The next live streaming will start in 30 minutes. The topic is life as a TAFE student, what to expect in Queensland, and guest speaker is Mr. Marty Rock. This concludes this live streaming. Ms. Quar, thank you for answering and question.
You're welcome. Thanks for inviting me on.
Yes, thank you. Everyone, thank you for watching our live streaming. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, hello everyone. Thank you for joining this event today. Welcome all the Fireside chat down under edition day 2 presented by the student of Global Skill Project in collaboration with TAFE Queensland and supported by Synapse. I'm Yukika. Please nice to meet you.
I'm Ren. It's nice to meet you.
Hi, I'm Mike Basho. Please, nice to meet you. And we are second grade of Hokusei Gakuen University based in Sapporo, Hokkaido, Japan, and member of Global Skills Project. We will be the moderator for today.
Our second special guest today is Mr. Martin Rock. Hi, Mr. Rock. Thank you for coming today. Mr. Rock was on the Fireside chat yesterday as well, but I think some people didn't watch yesterday's live streaming. So, could you please introduce yourself briefly, Mr. Rock?
Thank you, Ren-san. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's session. It's going to be a fun session today. I'm Marty Locke, or you can call me Marty-san. I'm the Manager of International Engagement and Communications for TAFE Queensland International Education here in sunny Queensland, Australia. I've been working for this organisation for about 15 years, involved in international student marketing and engagement. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for your introduction, Mr. Locke. Mr. Locke was on the live streaming yesterday, so if you are interested in, please watch yesterday's archive. Today's theme is Life as a TAFE student, what to expect in Queensland. We would like to ask about the experience in TAFE Queensland today. So let's move on the first question. Yes. What is the purpose of student attending TAFE Queensland?
A very good question to start off with. One of the things that we find that most students like about attending TAFE Queensland is the ability to find practical and industry training that's relevant to the job outcomes. For example, if you want to become a nurse, the training we do with our nursing means that not only do you learn within our classrooms, but you learn within our practical classrooms, plus we place you out in the hospital, so you are actually working with real patients. So the idea is to connect your training to industry employment. Thank you.
Thank you. To get skill is important for students, not only career, but also them life. So, and I consider that is the reason to go to school. So I think the system of TAFE Queensland is very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move to the next question. How do students learn in TAFE classes? Is it practical or is there are a lot of classroom lecture?
It's a blend of both. So with TAFE, it is very similar to like the university. So we do have classrooms and lectures, but most of our programs are conducted with small groups. So on average, you would probably have a class size of about 16 to maybe 25 students. And the reason for that is because some of our programs, there is what we call a health and safety element. So when we have our students inside some practical classrooms, the space that the students need inside that classroom need to be sufficient enough to make sure that our students are health and safe, conscious, and that way they don't injure themselves. And these are for examples like nursing, carpentry, automotive when we're dealing with cars and trucks, and also engineering as well, where we might be doing using gas or electricity in some of our practical training. A lot of our training is practical with theory, and it is all around about competency-based learning. So it's not about learning the subject and then sitting in an exam at the end. It's about progressive of your learning. So if you understand the topic and you pass the assessment, you progress through to the next unit. So it is quite a little bit different to most normal education systems that you might be used to. But the good thing is that there's a good balance between practical training, theory training. Now, the secret what we like to share with all our students is that our teachers actually come from those industries that they're teaching you in. So our nursing teachers are actually real nurses from the industry. Our cookery students are learning from teachers who run their own restaurants or have worked in the industry and are regularly working in the industry. Again, bringing in those skills into the classroom and applying the latest technology, skills, development, whatever that might be that the industry is after. Thank you.
Thank you. Got to hear from you.
And I've heard that Mati-san, you also used to attend TAFE. What classes did you take when you were a TAFE student, and how specifically did you learn in those classes?
Well, I attended TAFE in 2010, 2011. So it is a little while ago, but I'm happy to share my experience because what I learnt back then, I see still continuing with today. So I did a certificate in small business management, and because I was working here at the same time, my classes were conducted at night and it was part-time study. So my study load wasn't as full on as, say, a full-time student who was studying during the day. So it really allowed me to balance my study as well as my work environment as well. So I wasn't sort of working too hard or studying too hard. It was a nice balance. So my small business management program helped me design to develop skills if I wanted to set up my own business. And we do this for a lot of students where the skills that they're learning from their qualification may also mean that they want to set up their own businesses. And we do see a lot of students doing that. My classroom size, I probably had about 10 students in that class. And we all came from different areas of industries, and most of them were mature age students. So we did have a couple of young students in there, and that was totally fine. The work and lessons that I was involved in were included group work, where we came together and did an assessment together. And then we included individual work where I was given a project that I had to present in front of the class. And with this course, it was around developing my own business and what I wanted to do. So I took the concept of designing my own website online as a business and promoting a product and service online. And so I had to come up with a business plan and then a marketing plan, how I was going to finance it, how many staff, and how would I recruit the staff. And I had to present this to the front of the team. And that was quite interesting because it gave me an insight into what it'd be like to set up my own business. Now, a lot of our programs don't run for very long. So some of them might only be for 6 months. Some of them can be up to 2 years in duration. So it is a lot shorter than university programs. So my program was about 6 months, and I attended 2 nights a week over those 6 months for study. And it was really fun. I had lots of fun. I met lots of interesting other students who had very different backgrounds. They were setting up different businesses. One was setting up a cleaning service. They go into houses and clean people's houses. Others were setting up accounting business practices. I think one person was trying to set up their own law firm. So again, it was very mixed, but it was good because we all learned from each other.
Yeah, thank you for sharing your experience. It's helpful to hear about actual experiences, and it's become easier to imagine the campus life at the TAFE, Queensland. Thank you for sharing.
That's okay. Thank you.
The next question. How can students find a suitable program for them?
Look, there's many ways that students can find suitable programs. And I think, one of the key ones is obviously our website, and you can just jump onto our website. There is an international section on our website, and you can see all the international programs available to students who are not Australian. Now, the idea around that is because of the legislative requirements here in Australia means our programs need to be registered to allow international students to study them. That's just our regulations here. But most of those programs will be interacting with Australian students anyway, where best as possible. So a lot of our classes are mixed. If in doubt, if students can't find any areas of study on our website, they can reach out and talk to us. There is a little chat function on the website. There's also our social media. You can engage with us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, and also soon TikTok. So there are different channels that you can reach out and contact us. We do offer a variety of programs too. We do see a lot of students, especially from Japan, they like to undertake programs which will give them lots of skills and benefit. So we see a lot of nursing students, childcare students, hospitality students. We get a few graphic design students, and we're starting to see some students come into the IT, especially around cybersecurity and blockchain, which is, I guess, the best association with blockchain is around cryptocurrency and Bitcoin and Ethereum and sort of the infrastructure around that. But we also do get a lot of students who come and do other types of study, engineering, carpentry, automotive, boat building, horticulture, agriculture, applied science, dental technology. So we do have lots of variety of programs. There are some key programs, though, we don't offer, and that's fine. You know, we are a big government organisation and we don't offer all areas of study. And things like law and medicine, that typically sits inside the university sector. And so there's those particular areas where we may not be able to support students. However, one thing I do like to express to all our viewers here is that we actually have pathways from our program into university. So that way, you know, with credit and ease of access into a degree, usually in second year student degrees, where they can get access into that from our diplomas. But generally, most of the students can find a lot of information off our website.
Thank you for your variety story. Thank you. That is very interesting. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, let's move to the next question. What types of support are available to TAFE Queensland students? For example, what kind of support is available if a student is struggling to decide on a career path?
That is a very valid question because we do recognise that all students come with a need to find support. Now, support can come in very different shapes and ways and complexity. So we provide, and I am actually in charge of the international support for all international students coming into Queensland for TAFE Queensland. So I have quite a supportive team that are there to help you with transitioning from home, your friends and family, into Australian life. We help you with the transition to help find work. We help you with the transition to find accommodation. We help you with transport options. We help you with if you're having issues with your course and you want to change course, or you know you can't understand stuff. I have a team that speaks 32 different languages as well. Most of us speak about 2 or 3 different languages ourselves, so we can actually communicate in language where possible. And I do have a good number of my staff do speak Japanese, which is always very helpful, as well as Korean, Spanish, Portuguese, Dutch, German, Mandarin, Hindi, Bahasa. So that's just a few that we cover where majority of our students come from. But we also provide the recognition that sometimes students like to excel and they like to provide more support to other students. So we actually call those our student ambassadors, and we actually work with them to help new students transition into TAFE life because they've experienced it too. And I think one of the things I always remind my team is that we were all students once in our time. Remember the first day we attended school, how nervous were you? Even just in this webinar, we're all nervous listening to, are we going to present well? Am I going to answer the right questions? So at the end of the day, we need to understand that first day, first week, first month, students are always going to experience a sense of nerves. So we need to make sure that they have an environment they can come and talk to us, feel safe, feel secure, and feel listened to. So I have a team that does that for all our students. If they're trying to decide where they want to go to in a career, that's also stuff that we can help them with. And we have guidance counselors, we have all sorts of information that we can help students find the right path. And that's the thing here in Australia, is that one path might lead to many paths. And that is a really good option to have sometimes. And as I say to students, one path is fine, many paths are also fine. There's no right or wrong, because everyone's journey is different. So as long as we give them the support to get them on their way, we find that they are very successful.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Glad to hear from you.
And next question. In our global skills project activities, we are learning about global skills needed to be successful in the global. And TAFE Queensland has an international curriculum set up. So what skills do you think students need to be able to work in any part of the world?
I think the most important skill set that anyone in any industry, no matter where you come from in the world, is communication. Being able to communicate not just in a spoken context, but also with our body language as well. As you may have guessed, I use my hands a lot when I'm talking because I like to express what I'm saying. In many countries, the skills might be down to, can you lead? Can you manage? Are you able to do a task? And I think the biggest thing that we need to understand is that skills that we train students in are transferable skills. So some of our training is designed to go and how, as examples, how do you deal with customers? Now, in any industry that we might engage with, we all might have clients or customers, whether they're buying a product, buying a shoes, a mobile phone, a house, a car, travel, or they're buying a service, health insurance, home insurance, medical insurance, buying a service to operate your mobile phone, your telecommunications plan, buying a streaming service, whether it's Netflix or Disney Plus. So the idea is that you're going to interact with customers, whether they're purchasing from you or you purchasing from them. And with that, communication is really key to all transactions that we deal with. The other thing too is around skill sets is the ability to understand that you might learn little things along the way. They actually add extra, support to you growing as a person. I think one of the other key things too is sometimes you might be on a nice path and you go, I want to be an accountant, and you're focusing to get to be an accountant. But there's other things along the way that you might want to include, such as an example, I want to learn some marketing skills to complement my accounting. I want to learn some IT skills to complement my accounting, because those skill sets can obviously grow your ability, not only as a person, but for your organization as well. So these skills can be transferred from country to country. And these are skill sets that I say are really valuable, but not necessarily taught in the classroom. So in the classroom, let's say for accounting, you'll learn all about bookkeeping, you'll learn about profit and loss statements, you'll learn about journals and ledgers and accruals and other technical components of the accounting world. But the communication is something that you don't learn, and it's something that you have the ability to work with other people as well as work on your own. And I guess one of the new things that I think we need to work out is that we've got digital technology advancing on us. Here we are in a webinar. I'm on the other side of the world from Japan. You know, we're in a 1 hour time difference. You're in the northern hemisphere, I'm in the southern hemisphere, but yet we're still able to communicate and connect. And I think one of the things is being able to learn and adopt technology as we go through, and that technology is there to complement some of the work we do in regards to efficiency and effectiveness of our work environment. Plus, it's also a way to provide the ability for businesses to expand. So having networks with other people from other countries can also mean that for your business opportunity, if you wanted to open up in Australia, you would know, contacts you might have in Australia. So networking is very important too. And that's a skill I always encourage people. How do you get into networking? Communication. So those are some of the things I think are really valuable skills. One thing I always like to say is that, challenge yourself, push yourself, back yourself, because these are skills that I think will take you in a positive direction.
Thank you for answering. And our global skills project, we usually work with our team members and teamworks. So I really feel communication skill is necessary to work with people. Thank you very much.
It's okay.
Yeah. And next question. What are the career paths of TAFE students, especially international students after graduation?
Look, there are generally, from our research, when we talk to our graduates, there are a number of students that take very different paths. I can honestly say that about 80% of our students may consider a university pathway. And I mentioned before how you can pathway from our diplomas into a degree. We also do see many students either returning home or staying in Australia. And that could be for two things. One, the missing family and friends, and they're going back home, and there might be an opportunity back home to start their career. The other option is that they might have an opportunity to stay in Australia, and career opportunities might start from here and then end up somewhere else. And so what we see is that these paths, they can intertwine, and then they can take their own directions along their career timeline. And so what we see is majority of our students either go into further study or they go into employment. Sometimes we see students doing those two things at the same time. They'll go into university and they'll go into work, and they balance it out. But generally, some students, if they go into employment, then they come back and may go into university, or they come back to us. And that's the thing too, I think a lot of students from around the world need to understand, is that our sector and the university sector are both moving at the same time. And at any point, you can go into university, come into TAFE, go back into university, come into TAFE throughout your time frame of your life. And one of the things that we do see is a lot of senior executives coming back into TAFE to do extra qualifications to help them expand their skill set. And that's something that's really important to acknowledge, is that education is a lifelong learning tool. We should all be thinking in the mindset to learn every day for our lives.
Yeah, that's interesting for me. Yeah, actually, we can learn whole the life. Thank you for answering.
No problem.
And I think Yukika has next question.
Yes, I have next question. So, okay, then what program and the resource does TAFE Queensland offer that are popular with international students? Please also tell us how students can take advantage of them.
So a lot of programs are quite popular, but I'll narrow it down to just a few. So our most popular programs are nursing, hospitality, that's in cookery as well as hotel management, childcare, automotive, carpentry, which is like building houses, building apartments, townhouses, bridges, shops. And also we see a lot of interest in IT. So these might be around game development, So if any of you are interested in gaming, we do have a lot of businesses inside Brisbane specifically that design games for big companies like Nintendo and Wii and other PlayStation. And some of those games, have actually originated from Brisbane. So Halo, which is a very popular game, the company that designed that actually came from Brisbane. And some of those students that were involved in that project were some of our students. Also, we do a lot of website development, and also obviously with mobile phones being quite popular, the apps on mobile phones, whether it's a banking app or a journey planning app or trying to figure out the timetable for the subway app, whatever it might be, these are things that students are designing and developing, as well as the cybersecurity and network design. We are seeing growth in these areas. What we do to take advantage, or for students to take advantage, is that, a lot of these positions, or the study that they undertake, there are a lot of positions and jobs available at the end. And usually that's because we place students out in industry as part of their placement. So our chefs might be placed in restaurants and hotels like the Hilton or the Sheraton or the Sofitel or the Grand Hyatt, where they will undertake some of their practical training in a real environment with real customers who are paying for that service or product. And so that is almost like a doorway into employment. We are presenting these graduates out to industry, and if they present well and do a great job in that placement, their employer might go, hey, here's a job for you. And these are really important things that we try and promote with all our students. So some of those programs are very, very popular with our international market.
Thank you. That is very important and interesting. IT is very popular in Japan too. So that's very interesting. Thank you.
No problems. Thank you.
And I think next one is last question for today. What kind of activities do TAFE students do outside of class? Do most students work outside of classes?
That's a really good question to end on for today's session. What we find is that there's a number of things that our students like to do outside the classroom. I think from my observation, many students are quite social, as with any other students from around the world. But I do understand that, work is quite important to a lot of our students. And I'm saying our students collectively, these are our domestic and international students. So as much as they prioritize their work outside their studies, we do see them undertaking some social activities, whether it's catching up and going out to the restaurant, meeting up and going traveling somewhere, or they're just meeting up and playing a sport. So in Australia, we are quite a sporting nation. And so we do see some of them joining sporting clubs, whether it's soccer or rugby or hockey or surfing or whatever it might be. These students are very active and they're very social. And we do encourage our students to not only engage with other students from their own country, but we ask them to engage with Australian students as well. And that's why it's to get a good Australian experience. We do see some students, though, they like to make the most of their time in Australia and they do go exploring. So, it's only a 1.5 hour flight to Sydney or a 2 hour flight to Melbourne. So they might do that for the weekend and see the Sydney Opera House or the Sydney Harbour Bridge and do Bondi Beach and then come back. Or they might like to take a 2 hour trip north to Cairns and go and snorkel the Great Barrier Reef and try and find Nemo over there. But I guess, every student has a different purpose, and we encourage whatever they want to do to make the most of it. And we see our students working, traveling, socializing, and creating memories.
Yeah, thank you for answering question. Yeah, everyone can imagine that their student lives. And I think it's almost time for end of this session. we are able to hear a lot about TAFE Queensland. And finally, do you have any message for viewers, Mr. Rock?
Yes, I do. Thank you for your time today. Please, when we finish off today, think about this. Communication is really important in our lives. Be open, network with people, ask questions, learn every day. But the one thing I always like to say to students, challenge yourself and back yourself. You'll be surprised at all the amazing things that you guys can achieve. And I bet you there'll be amazing stories to hear from this. So thank you for your time. Thank you again.
Thank you very much for your message. And that's all for this session. And the next and last session for the Fireside Chat Down Under edition presented by the students of Global Skills Project will start at 3 p.m. Japan Standard Time.
Next guest will be Miss Lee Eichmann, who will be joining us from Australia. The topic is a Japanese's journey in Australia. If you are interested in, I hope you will enjoy watching next session. Thank you for watching and joining today.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, welcome to our live streaming.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good. How about
Yeah,
you?
I'm good too. Sounds good. So this session is the last session. This our program with TAFE and Snaps. So we are today's moderator. I'm Yui and
I'm Akari. Please, nice to meet you.
nice to meet you. So today's special guest speaker is Miss Eichmann. So thank you for
Hi,
coming today.
everyone.
Thank
Thank you for
Hi,
having
thank you.
me.
So could you introduce yourself briefly?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming and joining us today. I'm quite excited to be here. My name is Rie Eichmann. I'm originally from Tokyo and I'm an intercultural trainer and global skills trainer based in Brisbane, Australia. So thank you for coming and I'm quite excited to be here today.
Yeah, thank you. And today we will talk about the experience of Japanese individual living, working, or studying in Australia. So, Miss Eichmann, I let you start.
Yeah, let's start.
So then let's move on the question.
Okay, the first question is why did you come to Australia and why did you choose Brisbane?
Okay, so actually, I didn't choose to come to Brisbane. So my story is that when I graduated my university and I worked in Japan for a couple years, and I always wanted to go to America. Okay, and I wanted to do my master degree MBA in America. But one day, my parents decided to move to Thailand, Bangkok. So I was like, yeah, my parents say, Rie, why don't you come and work in Bangkok? So I was like, okay, I'm not really interested in Thailand. I wanted to go to America. I wanted to do my MBA. But I thought, okay, I'm Japanese. I know Japanese way. And my mother is from Taiwan. So I always have this Taiwanese, Chinese cultural background when I grew up. So I thought, okay, if I learn, live in Thailand, knowing something like different country in Asia will be good before I go to US. So I went to Thailand and worked there for 3 years. And I thought I still wanted to do my MBA. Then I found this American program in Bangkok. And I thought, okay, if I have this, I can go to America and finish my study and I can look for a job in America. But I thought, okay, I wanted to be a global career woman. So I decided to do one semester in London, UK, and I went to London and I was like, wow, this is amazing place. So I ended up finished my MBA and lived there for 12 years. After I finished my study, I met my future husband and he's from Australia. So 6 years ago, my husband and I decided to move to Brisbane because that is that's close to our family. And also my husband wanted to have Australian education for our kids. So that is why I didn't choose Brisbane. I was very nervous, but yeah, I do enjoy living in Brisbane now.
That's so surprising for us. So thank you for telling.
Yeah, I am one of the Japanese people who want to study or living abroad. So I'm happy to hear your story. And so, what did you concern about the moving abroad?
Yeah, always. When you move to different country, obviously the language. When I moved to Thailand, first time, obviously I didn't speak good English, and obviously I didn't understand Thai language, so it was so difficult for me to just yeah. So it's always language and culture. What else? It's so different when you're in abroad. The information you're used to, you have in Japan, comfortableness is so different. So I always worried, but I always had the same time Well, I think my curiosity was more stronger. If I live in this country, what kind of people I meet, what kind of friends, what kind of opportunity I have. So that kind of always one. So yeah, I did have some concern, but I actually embrace the Oreo difference. I hope I answered your question.
So thank you. So what was surprising to you when you come to Brisbane? And did you feel any culture gap? Or have you had any problems when you come to moved here?
Right. So before I moved to Australia, I already lived in UK, London, for 12 years. So excuse me. So I thought it's not that difficult, right? Because I lived in English speaking country and moving to Australia, easy. But it wasn't because the language is actually so Australia is still using British English, like spelling is quite similar compared to American English, but some words are different. And the accent, the way people talk, and the slang, everything was so foreign. And I was like, I didn't really understand what people were saying. And the accent was so different. So I found that was, the language was quite different. And also if you think, because you think maybe English people and Australian people, maybe they're similar, but they're actually quite different. So it's always hard to imagine when you move to a new country. Like my culture shock was basically language and the people. I like the laid back, culture of Australia, kind of easygoing compared to Japan or English. But yeah, the language was different. And also, I was not used to living the big country like Australia. I grew up in Tokyo. I lived in Bangkok. I lived in London. I always lived in quite small, in terms of house or in terms of space, small. But here, everything is big, huge, the area. So it was like a geographical, difference was quite big. But yeah, I think in a nice way, the surprise thing was people really nice and friendly compared to, I don't know, in a city, big city. So Brisbane is, yeah, really nice place.
That's so interesting. Or
So,
scale different. Oh, sorry. Thank you.
so how did you make friends and build a new community from nothing?
Right. So I really had to start making new friends whenever I moved to a new country. So it was in Bangkok, it was in London, it was in Brisbane. And when you move to a new country, most of the time you don't know anyone, right? But maybe you're lucky you have one friend who are already studying there or one family member or someone, or it started as one person I knew. So, for example, in London, I knew my family friend who were studying in London, and I just rely on that person, you know. But nowadays, we have like Facebook, we have social media, we can just follow someone who are already in the country and can make new friends, right? And it also depends on what age. If you're in 20s, if you're in 30s, if you're in 40s, it's all different approach because for me, I came here with my family. So I kind of managed to make friends with other, mothers or families or through my husband's work people. But luckily for us, we had a few friends moving from UK as well. So we have quite good old friends moving together. But apart from that, I also rely on my friends from UK. Like, do you know anyone who are in Australia that you know? So that's not direct, but I remember when I came to Brisbane, I literally have no one. But I remember my friend who were in UK already moved to Adelaide. or somewhere. And she messaged me, oh, I know someone who's moving to Brisbane, so you should meet this person. Oh, that would be amazing. And so that's how you start. And that's why I will encourage anyone, if you're considering studying abroad, moving to a new place, it will be great to connect with people before you move, so you can get more information and have that, if you have any question, you can ask that person. So yeah, I definitely encourage you to reach out, your friends, international people. Even you can meet people on social media and ask questions.
Yeah. So do you feel that your thoughts have changed, or you have grown since you have lived in the country that is not your hometown?
Good question. Have I changed? Constantly, because if you are moving to different countries, so I moved to, from Japan to Thailand and UK. I also studied abroad in Taiwan and US, but each country has different way of communication, right? In Asia, like in Japan, people would like to see someone who's more, take importance on harmony, like, oh, thank you, very soft spoken, or not really showing too much of your, expressive opinion. Whereas when I was in UK or in Australia, if someone asks you, what do you think? I need to have my opinion. Otherwise, I cannot add value to the conversation. So it was really challenging for me. And I know that for my students from Japan, or when we communicate with, more culture which has direct communication, it's really challenging. We don't really say no, it's really hard. So I had to practice myself to shift that culture, that communication channel. When I'm speaking with Australian people, I need to be, confident. I need to have my opinion. Whereas if I'm speaking with Thai people or Taiwanese or Singaporean or Japanese people, I will not kind of show that side of myself. So to me, the big thing I changed moving outside of my own country is definitely communication skills. Um, I had to learn how to communicate with different people from different cultural backgrounds. So that's the big thing.
So thank you. Um, uh, I have an image that your work does no matter when or where, because you're working with people from all over the world. Uh, so what is the most memorable work experience you have ever had?
I love this question. Thank you. So the most memorable moment is now.
Huh?
Isn't it amazing? Like us. So, I used to do a lot of face-to-face training. I used to go to, the company that deliver training, and our global skills program used to be face-to-face. And, doing this remotely, like you're in Sapporo, I'm in Brisbane, we're doing something remotely. And I just enjoy and embracing this new year that we can do a lot of things if we collaborate, So like this year, this event is amazing with lots of people's help and support to make this happen. And yeah, I just think I'm so lucky to be able to, work with all the amazing people. Even I'm in Brisbane, that's the beautiful thing. Nowadays, you don't need to limit yourself. Oh, because I'm in Malaysia, because I'm in Sapporo, because I'm in Brisbane. If you are passionate about, working with someone else in different country, you can do it. So I just enjoy every moment of this program, the people I work with, the people I met. I'm sure, all the students, you have met so many people that you wouldn't imagine without traveling. But in this 2023, we are in this era of having Zoom, having all this communication allowing us to connect and collaborate with people. So we're in such a great time. So I just wanted to encourage everyone to do this.
I'm really glad to hear that because this activity is memorable work for me too. So yeah, it was too lucky, good opportunity for me, I think. So yeah, I'm really glad to hear that. Thank you.
Thank you.
So the next question is, what is the most important skill to working abroad? How do you think? What is the most
Okay.
important skill?
Yeah. So the most important skills, I think I would say two skills that you need is adaptability. So like I said, I had to learn, different kind of communication when I talk to different people with different cultural background, right? Some culture, like especially in Australia, you need to be, straightforward. You need to have your opinion. Otherwise, people find it, oh, why you don't have your opinion? And it doesn't really show that you're confident, right? So adaptability, if you learn that slight different cultural difference when you communicate with certain culture, change your communication skills. And when you move to a new country, try not to stress out too much because obviously the custom is different. The way people talk is different. Accent is different. The behavior is different. So sometimes I do see a lot of, students studying abroad. They might feel homesick and stressed because, yeah, sometimes you take it personally, and obviously it's really challenging to live abroad because start with the language. There's only if you speak Japanese, it's useful in Japan, not anywhere else, unfortunately. So as Japanese, you need to learn either English or foreign language to communicate with the local people, right? So adaptability, if you move to a new country, don't just keep, bringing your Japanese background or, oh, in Japan, things are like this, that, and yeah, just accept the difference, embrace the difference, and just take it easy and, oh, okay. And don't make it too don't make yourself too frustrated about the difference. That is the reason you're in abroad, to get used to working or studying or collaborating with different people from different part of the world. Another thing I would say is curiosity. So be curious. Ooh, why they eat this? Why they eat this food this way? We have so many different culture. Like if you go to Indonesia, if you go to Malaysia, or India, each culture have their own style of doing things, right? And to me, learning the difference is always fascinating. That's why I always wanted to go abroad, talk to different people from different culture, and even food is different. The buildings, the history, everything's so different. And just the trick to living abroad, not feel stress is if you're curious, it's not, it helps you to see things in a positive way or maybe more neutral way. Oh, why do people do that? Rather than, oh, why? It's not the same as in Japan. Why people don't do this way? So if you're curious, you're a bit more open-minded. So I encourage people to have curiosity and adaptability, because if you're kind of still being very Japanese, living abroad, oh, they don't have natto or, certain food, I cannot survive with this or that. It will be a bit difficult, right? But if you're easygoing, okay, there's no rice, that's okay. I'll eat potato or something. It's that's the beauty of living abroad, and embrace the difference. And yeah.
So
Yeah,
adaptability and curiosity is an important point. I
yeah,
understand.
yeah, I agree with you. I just only have, especially curious. So I want more try and challenge from my curiosity.
That's
Yeah.
good.
So then, do you have any new challenge you want to try in Australia?
Yes, I do. So I thought it's more like my private thing, but especially if since I'm in Australia, one challenge I want to try is driving from Brisbane to Sydney, the road trip. Because I have never lived in anywhere that I drive more than 2 hours. Okay. So I lived in Tokyo, I lived in, Bangkok, London. I didn't need to drive, but here in Brisbane, I had to learn how to drive. And the road trip is something that I didn't really do. So from Brisbane to Sydney, can you guess how long it takes to drive?
No, I don't know.
No idea. Um, so the distance wise, it's about 900 kilometers. Okay. So I know Australia is big. So to just give you a background, I actually searched to ask ChatGPT earlier. So Australia, the size of Australia is about, you can put 20 Japan in Australia in terms of size. So Australia is 20 times bigger than Japan. And from Brisbane to Sydney, it will take about 10 to 12 hours drive. So I was like, wow, but it's doable. I wanted to do when I'm in Australia. There's so many beautiful places I have never been yet. So yeah, road trip is my next challenge. I need to practice to be able to drive more than 3 hours. Can you drive? Akari, Yui?
Yeah, I have a driver license, but I
Good.
never drive at a real life. So
Okay.
yeah, I wanna try to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanna go Australia and I want to drive with Miss Akman too.
Yes. That'll be nice to do road trip.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so different, like from where, I lived in Australia in terms of the nature and the view. Yeah, it's so different.
Yeah, you just say that, and I have heard that Australia is very nice place to live. So, what do you feel is the most attractive point in Australia that you have lived in so far, or also what some of the recommend points make people want to live in Australia?
Right. So yes, I did live in different countries and places, but I would say Australia is big, so it depends which part of Australia you're talking about. But since I'm in Brisbane, Queensland, I will talk about Brisbane because the weather in Queensland or Brisbane is just so lovely. Especially, I appreciate because I moved from London where the weather is not that always sunny. So when I came here, I was so surprised. It's really tropical. So if you say Brisbane is kind of like Okinawa in Japan, very tropical, the weather, 2/3 of the year is sunny. So, and I love the nature. So remember, I grew up in Tokyo. I have never interested in nature. So when I moved here, I didn't know what to do with nature. Like so many trees, huge sky. But now I really appreciate. So the thing I love about Australia is obviously the beautiful beaches, the location, weather is nice. Because I remember when I lived in London, we were doing, barbecue. We could do one barbecue maybe per year because of the weather, either too cold or rainy. But here is like obviously, nice weather. And yeah, I would say sky, cloud, rainbows, they're like look so different from other countries. So yeah, I totally recommend living Australia. Another good thing about Australia is obviously multicultural city, especially if you go to Sydney, Melbourne, it's just so big international city. Brisbane, in term slightly different, but I feel it's really safe. And the good thing about, based in Brisbane, Australia is the time difference. It's just 1 hour difference, 1 hour ahead of Japan. So you still have chance to communicate or get in touch with your family, friends in Japan. And actually, Australia is quite popular destination for Japanese people to live. So it's like the third popular country for Japanese people to live overseas. So you have a lot of Japanese food, access to, those Japanese ingredients. So it makes your overseas life a bit easier. So that will be the reason I will, recommend to anyone. And also there's a lot of job opportunity. Sometimes it's a little bit more Japanese related, but if you can also find some Japanese related work as well. So that
That
would
sounds
be
good.
points.
I'm more and more interested in Australia and especially Brisbane. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
How about today's weather or temperature?
Well, talking
today?
about weather, it's normally it's nice, but it's very cloudy and it looks like it's gonna rain. Yeah, we need some rain sometimes. So
Thank
very
you. So,
thank you.
it's almost time to our session. Thank you for coming to our live streaming. And this session was the last session of this project for our team. So thank you for coming. And how was it, Yui?
Yeah, so I really enjoyed this session and thank you. And so I also learned a lot and great experience. I had a great experience through this 2 days of live streaming. So thank you very much all.
Thank you, Yui. Yeah, I'm really enjoyed this session too. At first, I was really nervous but I can enjoy our session and thank you for making good opportunity to us. And thank you. So finally, Miss Eichmann, please give us your comments to encourage people who want to go to Australia.
Yeah, it's really beautiful country to live, and I didn't know much about Australia until I moved here. And Australia, especially Sydney, Melbourne, is always ranked in the ranking, the best livable cities. And I was like, oh, why not Brisbane? But Brisbane is so family friendly place. Like I mentioned, the area is so big, and I would say Australia is so Japanese friendly, or very not even you're not from Japan. It's very diverse culture and embraced diversity. And also I feel very safe, and the government is doing a lot of things, and just really safe country and lots of opportunities. And these days, I know that they try to, in terms of obviously we kind of need to check the visa regulation. But if you study in Australia, you get to have extra year of staying in Australia. So there's a lot of opportunities. So I truly encourage people to do more research and find the opportunity here to study or live or work. I highly recommend it. So thank you so much.
Thank you. So you can watch this live streaming again in archive. So please check it out. So thank you for coming today and see you soon. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Thank
having.
you.
See you.